Hello. Welcome to Modular Character Tools in Unreal Engine. Thank you so much for coming today. Last day of Fest here in Seattle. I've had a blast. First time in Seattle. Gorgeous city. What a gorgeous convention center. And we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. So how can we make our rigging and animation tools easier to use? How can we make rigging accessible to more people? How can rigging become a playful experience instead of a tedious task? So these are questions I've been asking for around 20 years now. The last 20 years of my professional career has been figuring out how to solve problems using rigging and simulation tools. All of this has led me to my current position as product manager for rigging tech in Unreal Engine at Epic Games. And what really amazes me about Unreal Engine is that everything is real time all the time. There's no waiting for renders. Everything is immediate. And our content creation process should also be immediate. We shouldn't have to round trip all of our content between multiple packages. Every modular rigging system I've interfaced with has a big main purpose, and that's to open up a gateway to do much more in way less time. Modular systems enable you to be more creative because it gives you your time back. So in 1972, David Parnas wrote a paper that defined a concept known as the information hiding principle. This principle says a software module hides information by encapsulating the information into a construct, which presents an interface. This concept is not that dissimilar to one of my favorite movies ever, The Matrix, which I saw with my dad about 5 times when it came out. So I have a bit of a passion around this particular problem. Now, we aren't necessarily creating the Matrix here, but in layman's terms, the information hiding principle is about making programs easier to interface and easier to build. So while doing research on this, I kind of came to the conclusion that a modular problem is a design problem. And for Unreal 5.5, we spent some time looking at how we can make our workflow easier to use and easier to build on. We believe opening the door to modular deformer systems and modular rigging is the path to making our tools accessible to everyone. Modular Control Rig literally has modular in the name, so I thought this would be a great place to start. Rigging is hard, but it doesn't have to be. Modular Control Rig is about assembling a character from parts and getting to your final animation quicker. We're moving into beta, Unreal 5.5. And so why I'm extremely passionate about rigging and technical animation, many are not, and they just want to animate. So when we were studying about modular rig systems, I kind of brought forth this concept of 2 user personas for the system to the team. The first persona was a module author. This is a passionate rigger who understands rigging concepts, control rig, and has the technical rigging chops to build a module. The second persona was a module user. This could be that same passionate rigger who doesn't want to do work twice, or it could be an animator who obtains just enough knowledge to build a character. This second person is where we spent most of our time, as these users have not had access to easy rigging tools. So we wanted to simplify the entire rigging process, get to the fun stuff quicker. The faster you can prototype, the better your final result will be. We wanted to try to make rigging fun, because let's be honest, it isn't to a lot of people. By making a playful experience, it encourages new ways of thinking about character construction. We want all of this to lead to a community that can build and share knowledge together. So this is one of our first mock-ups we did of our what we call the visual schematic. And this really gave us a lot of inspiration for how to potentially display a rig in new ways. This was done by Helga Matti, who's our lead architect of Control Rig. And with a lot of work from design and our designer, Stefania Medrick, we really explored ways to approach rigging in a more visual way. And this system has empowered our internal teams to work faster. The Colombo rig set was created by an incredibly talented rigger at Epic, Matt Ringo. The modules he created allowed him to rig one version and reuse for the Lego version. Not only that, all of these modules now are available for them for the future use for the team to help solve new problems. And so here's a look at Colombo's modular rig. This is constructed from a series of connected parts designed around Colombo. And this is our Modular Control Rig Editor. So Modular Control Rig ships with a pre-built library of modules for you to use in your projects or to use for learning purposes on building your own modules. I've heard many stories of people breaking these things apart and building their own modules, which is really great. The Unreal Engine 5.4 modules that we shipped in spring, those primarily focused on building rigs around bipeds, or creatures that walk on two legs. And so in Unreal Engine 5.5, we added a few new sets of modules. We now support quadruped animal modules to help rigging with four-legged creatures, or more legs, and additionally an innovative set of modules around cars and vehicles with wheels. So modules do not only have to be for creatures and characters. Helga Mati, our lead engineer on Control Rig, created a wonderful talk on modular rigging at our Unreal Fest Prague talk this last summer. It features some experimental modules using Control Rig's indirect proxy controls to build a really advanced scooter rig. I highly recommend checking out this talk for more information on the scooter. It's really great. And everyone asked us to release this rig, so we are. There we go. Not only that, these modules are now a bit more genericized to work with vehicles of any rig size and other mechanical mechanisms, for cars and whatever you want, essentially. The wheel, hinge, and suspension modules can be used on tires to automatically help roll wheels and slide tires around. And we've also added a few advanced modules to help with multi-pivot setups and constraint systems. So these modules are kind of considered version 1, and not to be confused with the Chaos modular car system, which is super awesome if you haven't checked that out yet. These modules are really designed for keyframe animation, posing cars, whereas that system is more about working at runtime. Sure, this can work at runtime, but this is really around building vehicles inside of our modular rigging system and animation tools. So I'm throwing the modules here together. I wanted to show how to use them. And these modules work slightly differently than our biped modules we had in the spring. They're a little less drag and drop because they're mechanical parts. All these modules actually interface together. So we spent a lot of time reworking our module hierarchy over here to the left. We've added like a search bar and a few other things, but we found that customers and myself too was in there a lot. And so basically all you have to do is resolve these connectors. And you resolve these connectors to different parts of your rig, the rig builds itself. So the wheels, each of these modules require a bone. So you give it a bone, and you kind of construct a little wheel rig. And whatever you give it, it'll build whatever you need. So if you don't need suspension, you don't have to add it. You can just add a wheel and you'll get like the automatic rolling. So I've built up a car here with 4 wheels in just a few clicks. And so now I'm gonna add a really cool module called the Vehicle Pivot Proxy. Proxy controls are awesome in Control Rig. They're basically just a control to drive other controls. And so this is a special one. This talks to all of the wheel modules with a lot of data going back and forth to them. So it'll do things. Once you set this up, you can then drive the rotation of the wheels. It'll set up the suspension modules to collide with the ground and give like a realistic suspension type motion. And so I'm gonna set that up here. And now you can see we have tires kind of colliding with the ground and the wheels are turning. And so then you can kind of animate this thing how you would like. And so as I mentioned, proxy controls are an incredibly unique feature to Control Rig. We've had a lot of really cool things come out of this feature from a lot of our customers. And we've added this thing called the Pivot Proxy module. You can create a dynamic pivot on any source within your rig. And if set up correctly, you can then have a multi-pivot rig with a lot of flexibility. This is really great for vehicles because sometimes you might want to animate from the front of the car or the tires, or you might want to animate from all the tires. And you can add as many of these as you like all over your asset. So I'm going to add one to the front of the car and to the back. Let's scale these controls up a little bit. Turn off the X-ray mode. We added the X-ray mode that we had in the viewport to all of our Control Rig viewports now, so you can quickly see your controls. So now I can pivot the car around from all these different points, and it brings the whole rig with me. These are also good for characters. These aren't limited to our car rigs. You can totally use these on characters too. So as I mentioned, we spent a lot of time cleaning up this module hierarchy view in 5.5. You can easily filter different connector types now. We really try to make it not as scary because it does show you a lot of data by default. So now you can hide and unhide these things. And we also added a search and we added a selection sync. So whatever you're selecting in the viewport will also highlight now in this view so you can like a lot easier get around this window. And I think it can help to understand what is happening underneath as you assemble your modules. So as you construct your module hierarchy, it is solved downwards in order as you would expect with any hierarchy. But we take care of ordering for you. You don't really have to manage this, but we do give you flexibility to rearrange this as needed. All right, so in Unreal, we can create fast, real-time GPU deformers on scalable meshes using the deformer graph. And now you can build modular deformers, more easily hook up deformers to control rig graphs. So while previously we were able to do this with animation attributes, that's a feature that lets us send data back and forth between our systems in 5.4, we went an extra step this time and rethought the process of building deformers within control rig. Animation attributes were designed to let you pipe data between deformer graph and control rig. They're still there. You can still do cool things with those. We're not getting rid of that feature. But we've streamlined this further with a new add deformer node in the control rig graph. So it's basically easier than ever to build a custom deformer in Unreal within your rig. So here I've built a deformer in my modular rig called a wall deformer. And I can drag and drop it onto my character here and resolve it to a socket, and it's going to immediately start deforming my character. And this is kind of an extreme example. I like to call this the wall deformer because it'll flatten the character, but you can use it for foot squash or whatever. But you can imagine this could be a squash and stretch deformer or any other kind of deformer. And now I'm in my modular rig system. I can hook this up to the rest of my rig, and I get a lot of flexibility. So I'm giving it a parent. So now I can now hand this over to an animator, and they can animate that deformation without ever having set any of that up themselves. So this is that new add deformer node. You have to refresh the variables. Talk about it in a minute. And I just want to give a look at the algorithm. It's not too complicated. I wrote this with a little help from Jack Kai, who's our deformer graph engineer. And this is the deformer graph. So if you want to try to recreate this yourself, this is the code to do that. So here's a more practical use of the wall deformer. And that was not going to play. Hold on. Let's just look at this one. All right. So more practical use of the wall deformer is for tire squish, right? So you can use that on vehicles, and you can kind of get a really cool like ground collision happening. And so if I squish this up, and then if I roll this Unimog, I got this from Daryl Aubert, who from GDC this last year built this awesome truck. These tires are, I think, like 1,000,000 verts or something, really, really heavy. But it's just instant. There's no like delay or anything. So I can now sculpt my tire however I would like as an animator right in my rig. And so here's a look at the graph again of the what the control rig looks like with the add deformer node. You can put as many of these into your control rig as you would like now and hook controls up to your deformers to control them in various ways. There's really no limit here to what you could do. You could put dual quaternion in there if you wanted. That might not make a lot of sense, but maybe that's where you want to do that. It's totally fine. And as I said, it's important to note that on this node, there's a right-click refresh variables. That's how you get the data from deformer graph. It'll bring it all into control rig really quick, and then you can start hooking up your data immediately. It's been a more complicated process in the past, so we're really trying to make that a lot simpler. And this is really cool. So vertex masks. If you notice, you might notice that the deformer is only deforming the tire, not the whole car. So we have the skin weights as vertex mask. You basically give it bones within your asset. And the deformer will just detect whatever it's weighting and only deform those points. So this is a real powerful way. So if you want to deform your whole mesh, you can, or if you just want to deform like your single tire, you can do that. The animator kit. So we've added this new plugin. Frederick Nielsen showed a lot of this yesterday in his awesome talk. When that gets released, if you didn't check it out, go watch it. It's great. But we're going to ship a few pre-built deformers that you can use during animation in Sequencer. So those deformers are great for animators, but they're also for riggers and technical artists to see how to set this all up. All the code is in there. You can go see the graphs. Everything is available right there for you to pick apart or build new things. So I grabbed Wukong from our Paragon dataset off the marketplace, soon to be fab, to demo some of these animator kit deformers. Been really inspired by Blackmyth Wukong. That's an amazing Unreal Engine 5 experience if you haven't checked it out yet. So in just a few clicks, I add a push-pull deformer to Wukong, and I can sculpt his mesh in new ways that were previously impossible with bones. We've also added, so there we go. He's kind of sculpting his head a little bit. Works on hair and everything. So we've also added a lattice. This is a long requested deformer tool that can be built in just a few clicks now on a character. And so as an animator, I can kind of start grabbing his mesh and pulling it around and setting keys. And all those are just control rig controls. They work just like any other control rig. You don't have to kind of fiddle with a new type of control structure. All right, so back to Modular Control Rig. As I mentioned, we've added a range of ways to construct four-legged creatures of all sorts. I'm going to go through some of these new modules. There's a hind leg module, lets you build a reverse joint leg for use on animals with three-bone legs like wolves and this robot. The animal spine offers a multi-point IK spline setup for use on animals that walk on four legs. It's very similar to human spines, but you need to be able to separate the hips and the chest. This lets you do that. So the animal neck lets you rig a variable size bone neck. A lot of animals in rigs sometimes have just different bone counts. You never really know, so this will handle all of that. And then the tail module is fun. It's kind of like a spline setup. You can use it for a variety of things. It has a cool little dynamics setup in there. All right, so I thought I'd show how we can build a zebra rig in about a minute with these modules. And so I'm just going to walk through here and drag and drop some of these modules onto this asset. This is the African animal pack on our Forever Free marketplace. So you can go grab these assets and try these out yourselves if you would like to do what I'm doing here. There's a lot of assets in there. There's a zebra and all sorts of things. I'll show a few more of those too. But a few clicks, we get some really cool rigging. I can start posing this zebra around. And I took this same rig and I chucked it onto an elephant. And I took our tail module and used it for the trunk. And with the cool little dynamic setup it has on it, I can get some really interesting effects. And I kind of added some of our other modules, wiggled its ears around. So I did this all in the Modular Control Rig Editor, just no graphs building any of this. And also wanted to test out something a bit more extreme, alligator way closer to the ground, a little different body composition. And so I could take that tail and tweak a little bit of the dynamic settings and make it a little heavier. But this all worked really well on even this little alligator guy. I mean, I couldn't resist. So yeah, I wanted to try a test of combining these modules with our biped modules. And so I rigged the bottom portion of him with our quad modules and the top portion of him with our biped modules, and it worked out pretty well. And this asset's also available on the marketplace for free. I think it's called Mythical Asset Pack or something. It's on the Forever Free. Really great little packs. And last but not least, the mech. This is from Daryl Aubert in his Unreal Fest diner scene. If you haven't seen that, it's awesome. So he quickly rigged up this guy with kind of just fast bones. So with a few clicks, I was able to just, as long as I gave it the 3 bones, it just started working. So this thing is real flexible. And I'm gonna rename it. I'm gonna use our mirroring tools. We have mirroring tools. We worked a lot of those on for 5.5. To note, see the geometry flip. This is fun. If you have any vector exposed in your module options, it'll flip it for you when you use this tool. So if you're designing these and you want to expose axes and stuff, you can kind of get some help there if you don't want to figure all that out in Control Rig. So the biped modules that we shipped in 5.4 have also received some upgrades. Module metadata. This is, I think, I'm such a rigging nerd. This is one of my most favorite things in this whole system. It can be used when authoring a modular rig to send data between modules. So if metadata is a new term to you or it sounds complex, it really isn't. Metadata is really just where your data is stored. So for example, a variable getting stored on the module itself or on the top module of the entire system, then you can access this data without knowing much about it except the name of it. So when designing the modular control rig features, we quickly hit this wall of like, how do we get the modules to talk to each other as you're building them? So module metadata was the answer because we had a pretty robust metadata system inside Control Rig. These 2 nodes are a really powerful force. I'll have to show in a minute. So the set metadata node lets you store this data wherever you like. Here I'm storing some data from my foot bone. and sending it to the root module. So now any module I add can access that foot bone without knowing the name of it or anything. And the get metadata node will then grab that wherever I put it within the module system. So big request I had from 5.4 was like, hey, it's not working on my Mixamo character. So here's a Mixamo character. I can now drag and drop these modules directly onto it, and it works flawlessly. That's because of the metadata system. And so I did two things essentially. The modules now build what I like to call template bones procedurally, because really rigging on random incoming data on skeletons is really hard. It's a really hard problem to solve, and you really just can't take into account all the situations. So it's much easier to build a template bone that it rigs and it knows what to do, and then attach the other skeleton to it. And so this is common in a lot of modular rig systems that I've seen. And two, we have a set of metadata to define each one of these kind of third-party skeletons, such as Mixamo and mgear. Okay, so let's take a look at this metadata setup. If you go into Unreal 5.5 and go find the root module in our plugin, there's a new function in there called generate biped skeleton data. I did not come up with a clever name for that, but this does the job. So we're gonna hop into this, and this is gonna look terrifying, but it's kind of fun. It's like art. So each one of these graphs is defining a skeleton. And all this is basically like a big spreadsheet. It's a bunch of metadata getting set. And so it really was pretty quick to define each one of these skeletons. I'm basically just assigning names. I'm saying like, hey, on the Mixamo skeleton, my foot bone is named this, and this is the axes. And so we support a range of third-party skeletons kind of from around the internet and industry, and a lot of our internal like Paragon and UE4 and stuff. So it makes these skeletons have much more success in the system. I'm sure there's still some kind of failure rate, but it's working much better now. So it does a check on the skeletons to try to figure out which skeleton it is, such as Mixamo and mgear, and it'll set it for you in the root module. And here I had an override. You can see if I change it, everything turns red because it's a whole other skeleton. That doesn't exist here. So, okay, one more thing I want to show in Unreal 5.5. This is our little dragon friend here from a few years ago. Some cool dynamic stuff. I want to talk about function and module swapping. I've really loved this feature. It's saved me so much time. So now you have the ability to swap a function with another variant of a function. We'll hook up pins and let you know about stale pins that might not exist. So what is great about this, you can do it on a single function, or you can do it for your entire graph or project all at once. Workflow I use a lot is I'll localize a bunch of functions, and I don't know, I might want to go to another function or something. Now you can just do that really quickly without having to manually bring it in, set all your pins and everything. So this has saved me hours. Skeletal meshes. So the skeletal editor enables you to create your bones directly in Unreal if you're not familiar with it. It also lets you paint and edit the skin weights. And the skeletal editor we now consider production ready. We have battle tested the tool with our internal teams. And the skeletal editor combined with our modular rigging and deformers provide a powerful set of tools for building modular characters. And to vet this modular skeleton workflow out, we built the character in Fortnite completely using the skeletal editor. And Nightmare is, I believe, on the store now. I've been here, so I haven't been able to check, but she should be out there now. We really, truly want our tools to work in a production environment because this benefits everyone. One of our awesome technical animators at Epic, Charles Anderson, took this task on in Fortnite and worked really closely with us to make sure these tools can deliver the highest quality characters possible. And this enabled us to bypass the round-trip Maya pipeline completely. And to enable production-ready modular workflow, we tackled a lot of things, but kind of focused on 3 areas this release for the skeletal editor. Transferring weights between meshes is a really important part of a rigger's process and toolbox. We were able to implement a new innovative transfer method we're kind of calling Renaudt's transfer, which is also present in our cloth simulation tools. This enables you to transfer weights easily between skeletal mesh assets for reuse of weights. So I want to show you how to use the tool and where to go to start playing with it. Edit weights, we have a new little bellows called weight transfer. And you can load in any other skeletal mesh. So I loaded Rampage in, and he'll display in your editor directly, so you can kind of get an idea of maybe what your result's going to be. You set your settings up, hit transfer weights, and accept, just kind of like the rest of our tools, and then you'll have some weights on your new character here. So we have a lot of cool ideas coming up for this tool. We're going to definitely keep going down this avenue, but it's really great. So many of our characters have separate parts that need to be rigged. So we put a lot of effort into isolation workflows in the viewport. I can grow my face selection here and isolate only this one armor piece on the arm and just do my work on where I need to. So up here I can come and flood. I love doing this little workflow flood and grab a piece of geometry. Now I can just operate on that. And you can also I'm gonna grab all the selected verts, and you can isolate just like a chunk of the mesh to really make it easy to paint weights. A few more tools I want to call out. To help fix stray verts, we've added a weight hammer. This will essentially, if you have like a crazy vert going off in the space, it'll grab all the surrounding verts and average it out. Basically, it'll pop that vert back into place. Let's see, once you hit it, I'm gonna come in here and grab it. Hit hammer, and there we go. So now the vert is kind of following along. It's a pretty common game problem. And we also have copy and paste to do very similar operations if you need more control. Let's talk about pie. As much as I love pumpkin pie, this isn't the type of pie we are going to talk about. I'm referring to Play and Editor within Unreal, also known as Pi. We've enabled the ability to paint weights during Pi, giving you instant feedback directly during runtime. This saves a ton of time without having to round trip. I want to show you how to do that. So you can load up, I have my game instance running on the right with my character here. If you notice her elbow in the right, it looks pretty gnarly, right? We see that in a lot of games and stuff, a lot of times. So I want to come in here and fix my weights. So now I can load up my instance, and in my skeletal editor, I'm even going to get the camera view and everything. And I can just start smoothing out these weights immediately. So I'm going to clean up her elbow here, make it look a little better. I would spend a lot more time on this realistically, but really coming from this, anything is going to be better. So I'm going to smooth it out, relax. We have a really cool relax tool. It's a really smart, kind of looks at all the surrounding vertices, so it's really effective. So when I hit accept, you're going to see it's going to push it into the game for me. There we go. So now my weights are pushed directly into the game. If I had to do that with Maya, this would have been at least an hour, if not longer, depending on what happens between that data transfer. So with just a few clicks, I was able to update that, and I could check that in and maybe even ship it. So by saying no to round trips, we get new ways to work in Unreal like this. And it's really enabling some awesome workflows. I think we're going to see a lot more stuff coming like this. It's really fun. So the bots on the Megalites demo are a great example of many of these tools working together. So we built the bot animation completely in Unreal Engine. This was not an animation demo. This is a really awesome lights demo, but the team approached Frederick and me. We're like, hey, we have these fun little bots. We want them all over the environment to really test how the lights interface with characters and stuff. So we were like, challenge accepted. Let's do it all in Unreal. So we had 4 variations of these bots, all similar but different enough. This is a common problem with many assets, probably most assets. And so I used one skeleton for the bots. Another kind of common workflow within Unreal. You can also turn the bones multicolored if you didn't know that. So here's the skeleton. And here's that skeleton on all the bots. So within our ecosystem, and using the skeletal editor easily I can kind of rework this skeleton to work for all these different types of shapes of bots. And they're pretty different. They're different enough to where it would, in most cases, probably need a new skeleton. So this is a good example of putting all these workflow together. And we're going to add some new bones and rigging in him in just a few clicks. So here's some animation from Frederick Nielsen. I loaded it on my modular rig here. So you can kind of see how the rig works. It's pretty simple. There's no, sometimes simple rigs are the better rig, right? So I need to animate these vents. Frederick needs to animate these vents. So I need to get this to him. And so what I can do within our tools is I can come right over to the skeletal editor. So I'll just switch to the other window. And I'm going to start adding some bones. So I've sped this up a little bit, but this whole process takes about 5 minutes. So I'm going to build a bone here. I don't want to add a control for each one of these vents. I want kind of a cool little nifty setup. So I'm going to show how to do that. So let's add some bones onto our vents here. If you aren't familiar with our tools, you can come in and rename bones. One of my favorite features is that you can hash rename things directly in the outliner. I got that technique from Jason Slafer, I've talked to a lot here. It's a super awesome thing. So we're trying to put more of those types of tools within our ecosystem. So, so now we have, with a few clicks, I have all my vents weighted in bones on them. I'm gonna check all their orientations. If you don't know, we don't have a orient matrix in Unreal, so your rotation is your orientation. It's always been super confusing to everyone, but you really just need to care about your rotation. Whatever your bones are rotated to, that's what it is. Okay, so now I have everything weighted. I can come into Unreal. I'm gonna reload my skeleton. Instantly comes into my rig. I even get sockets for them. The modules are smart enough to just update the sockets for new things. Don't want a control for each one of these, so I'm gonna set up a little control with a new constraint module we have. If you want to know more about this constraint module, I actually built it live in one of our live streams a few months ago. It's very basic. Not all modules need to be these crazy big parts of characters. They can just be like a constraint. And this just exposes our constraints in Control Rig. So I'm going to set up some constraints here. And basically when I move this control, it's going to rotate all my little vents. All right, this constraint thing is fun because you can tell it to be parent, aim, rotation. Okay, so we got one of them working, and I'm just going to continue to copy it down into the rest of my little vents here. And so what this is showing is that if I had to go back to Maya to do this workflow, this could have been multiple trips and potentially hours or a whole day just to get this very basic rig to work. And right here, I'm staying all in Unreal. Haven't touched a graph. I love graphs, but sometimes you don't want to touch graphs, right? You just want to get your work done and go to bed. Okay, so cool. Wrong constraint, so I'm going to change it over to rotation. So there we go. So now I have a cool little one control controlling all these vents. And within about 5 minutes, I'm able to then check this in, send it to Frederick. He can animate. We can all go to sleep. So that's a cool example of kind of like how all of our tools can really enable you just to work faster and give you your time back. So I thought I'd wake everyone up this morning with our Unreal Fest colors. These are all the cool things we've added. Not all of them, but kind of our big hits. If you're curious to what's out there, I couldn't fit it all into one slide. So here's a continued list of like some smaller items that I think are really important to know about. Talk about some of these here, but some of these we have not gotten to. So, future. What are we thinking about for the future? So we really want to empower you to do as much as possible inside of Unreal. By reducing these DCC round trips, we reduce the chance of data loss in this back and forth process with apps such as Maya. Staying in Unreal can directly improve productivity when creating real-time projects. We're really trying to think about what the future of digital animation looks like. So what we're thinking, we have a lot of really cool ideas. Most of the stuff's in play already. Physics and Control Rig and animation sequencer. So we really want to enable folks to do really cool rigging with physics and animate with physics. Contextual controls. How I put it is controllers get out of your way. We really want to explore, what do next generation control schemes look like, such as on-mesh controls. This is a mock-up from Benoit, one of our animation engineers who are actively working on trying to see how we can make these kind of schemes and make your working in Unreal even more interactive. We know that corrective sculpting is a big part of especially linear content pipeline. With the deformer system now, you can do a lot of this work. We want to take this even further. In module composition, basically what it says, creating modules from modules with no graphs. So everything you've seen today is really only possible because I work with such an amazing team of incredible people. None of this is possible without them, all the developers on the rigging team, animation team, and at Epic, all the product managers, QA designers. Everything here is a gargantuan task of a lot of people working really well together. And we also have some amazing artists at Epic that are just as passionate as I am about the tools. Last thing, if you haven't seen the octopus downstairs, go check it out. That's all Control Rig, Unreal Engine 5.3. Our very own Matt Ringo at Epic rigged that when he was at Weta, and it's all real-time running. It's super awesome experience and a really neat use case of Control Rig operating. So thank you for coming, and thank you to all these folks for giving us these awesome tools.